Mom, you're embarrassing us before you even get here. Those words echoed in my mind as I sat in seat 23C on Southwest Flight 1247 from Denver to Dallas, clutching the baptism invitation that had arrived just 10 days ago. My daughter Amanda's voice had been sharp on the phone yesterday, critiquing everything from my planned outfit to my outdated gift choices. It's a very upscale event, Mom. Bradley's family will be there. Important people. Just try to blend in, okay? Blend in. At my own grandson's baptism, I stared out the airplane window at the clouds below, remembering when Amanda was born 34 years ago. I'd held her tiny hand and promised I'd always be there for every important moment. Now, apparently, my presence was more burden than blessing. The flight attendant offered me pretzels with a kind smile. Visiting family in Dallas. My grandson's baptism, I said, surprised by how proud my voice sounded despite everything. How wonderful. Your first grandchild. Yes, little James Robert Hamilton Morrison. I'd insisted on the Robert part after my late husband, who'd passed 2 years ago. Amanda had reluctantly agreed, though she'd made it clear she preferred the hyphenated surname to sound more distinguished. I bet you can't wait to hold him, the attendant said warmly. Actually, I'd only held James twice since his birth 3 months ago. Amanda lived in Dallas now, and my arthritis made frequent travel difficult. Phone calls had become shorter, visits more infrequent, excuses more creative. Bradley's family is very traditional about christenings. Amanda had explained during our last conversation, the guest list is selective. Extended family, close friends, that sort of thing. Extended family as if I were some distant relative instead of the baby's grandmother. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, my younger daughter. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, Mom. By the way, what are you wearing? Amanda mentioned something about coordinating colors. Coordinating colors for the woman who'd taught both my daughters to walk, who'd stayed up countless nights when they had fevers, who'd worked double shifts as a nurse to pay for their college educations. I pulled out my compact mirror and studied my reflection. 72 years old, silver hair, neatly styled, wearing the navy dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion. I looked respectable, dignified even, so why did I feel like I was flying to my own execution? The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our descent into Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. I gathered my purse and the carefully wrapped baptism gift, an antique silver rattle that had belonged to Robert's grandmother. Amanda had suggested a gift card instead, something more practical. But some traditions mattered more than practicality. As we landed, I thought about the hotel Amanda had booked for me. It's more convenient, she'd said. The house will be so chaotic with preparations. More convenient than having her mother stay with her family. More convenient than having to explain why her mother looked older, dressed simpler, spoke differently than Bradley's polished relatives. The gate area buzzed with travelers reuniting with loved ones. Families embraced. Children squealed with delight at arriving grandparents. Couples kissed hello after time apart. I stood there for 5 minutes scanning faces, checking my phone. Nothing. Finally, my phone rang. Mom, are you here? Sorry, traffic is insane. Can you take an Uber to the hotel? I'll text you the address. We're running behind on preparations. Of course, sweetheart, I understand. But as I climbed into that Uber, watching Dallas suburbs blur past the window, I didn't understand at all. When had I become someone my own daughters felt they needed to manage rather than welcome? The driver, a man about my age, glanced in the rearview mirror. Special occasion? My grandson's baptism tomorrow. That's beautiful. First time meeting him? No, but I paused. First time that really matters, I suppose. He nodded knowingly. Grandchildren change everything, don't they? Make you see what's really important. He had no idea how right he was. At the hotel, I called Amanda to confirm tomorrow's schedule. The ceremony starts at 11 o'clock, she said briskly. We'll save you a seat. Oh, and Mom, could you maybe arrive right when it starts? We're having photos taken beforehand, and the photographer is really expensive. We want to keep the session intimate, without the grandmother. That night, I lay in my generic hotel bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Robert. He'd always said our daughters were our greatest achievement. But somewhere along the way, achievement had turned into disappointment. At least from their perspective. My phone lit up with a text. "Sweet dreams, Mom. Tomorrow will be perfect." Perfect. Just not perfect enough to include me in the photos. What my daughters didn't know was that I'd received some unexpected news just last week. News that would change everything about what perfect really meant. I woke up in my hotel room to sunlight streaming through thin curtains and my phone buzzing. A text from Rachel. "Running late. Go straight to the church. See you there." Not "good morning, Mom," or "can't wait to see you," just logistics. St. Matthew's Episcopal Church sat in the heart of Highland Park, Dallas's most exclusive neighborhood. As my Uber pulled up, I saw luxury cars lining the street. Mercedes, BMWs, a few Teslas, the kind of vehicles that announced their owner's worth without saying a word. I smoothed my navy dress and walked toward the church entrance, carrying my purse and the wrapped baptism gift. Through the front doors, I could hear laughter and conversation echoing in the vestibule. "Victoria," I turned to see Bradley's mother, Patricia Morrison, approaching with the kind of smile that never quite reached the eyes. Everything about Patricia screamed money, from her Chanel suit to her perfectly maintained blonde hair to the diamond earrings that probably cost more than my annual property taxes. "How lovely that you could make it," she said, air kissing both my cheeks. "Amanda mentioned you'd be sitting toward the back. Better acoustics, you know. Better acoustics." In a church that seated maybe 100 people. "Of course," I replied. "Wherever works best." Through the doors to the sanctuary, I caught glimpses of the scene inside. Elaborate floral arrangements adorned every pew. White ribbons cascaded from the altar, and professional lighting equipment suggested this baptism was being documented like a magazine shoot. "Mrs. Hamilton," I turned to see a young woman with a camera and clipboard rushing toward me. "I'm Jennifer, the photographer. Amanda asked me to let you know the family photos are wrapping up now. She'll see you after the ceremony for informal shots." Informal shots, while the formal ones happened without me. "Victoria, dear," Patricia interrupted, "why don't I show you to your seat? The ceremony will begin shortly." She led me into the sanctuary. And my breath caught. The first 3 rows were filled with an elegant crowd, men in expensive suits, women in designer dresses, children dressed like they'd stepped from a Ralph Lauren catalog. Amanda stood near the altar in a stunning cream dress, holding baby James, who wore what looked like a christening gown that cost more than my monthly mortgage. Rachel sat in the second row, wearing a burgundy dress I'd never seen before and speaking animatedly with a tall, dark-haired man in an impeccable navy suit. This had to be Ethan, the millionaire cousin. Her body language screamed flirtation, leaning in when he spoke, laughing at everything he said, touching his arm. "Here we are," Patricia announced, stopping at the very last pew. Perfect view of everything. I sat down alone as the church continued to fill around me. Extended family members, college friends, business associates, all taking seats progressively closer to the altar. The physical distance felt symbolic of something deeper, something that had been building for years without my quite realizing it. The processional music began, and everyone stood. I watched my grandson's baptism through a sea of expensive hairstyles and designer suits, straining to hear the minister's words over the subtle rustle of silk and whispered conversations. When it came time for James to be baptized, I stood on my tiptoes, trying to catch a glimpse of my grandson's face. Amanda held him confidently, Bradley beside her with his hand on the small of her back, both of them glowing with pride and joy. For a moment, I felt genuine happiness. Whatever else was happening, this was a sacred moment for my family. Then I noticed the photographer positioning herself for the perfect shot. Click, click, click. Amanda and Bradley with the baby, the minister blessing the child. Both sets of grandparents, Patricia and William Morrison from one side, but notably absent from the frame was anyone from my side of the family. After the ceremony, guests mingled in the church courtyard for what Amanda had described as a small reception. Small being relative. I counted at least 60 people enjoying champagne, catered hors, and what appeared to be a 3-tier cake decorated with blue and gold flowers. I approached Amanda, who was surrounded by well-wishers admiring the baby. "Sweetheart, he was absolutely perfect during the ceremony," I said, reaching out to touch James's tiny hand. "Mom." Amanda's smile looked forced. "You made it to the front." "Great." Before I could respond, a woman in pearls interrupted. "Amanda, darling, we simply must get that recipe for the cake. It's divine." "Of course, Mrs. Whitfield." "Mom, this is Mrs. Whitfield. She's on the board of the Dallas Museum of Art with Patricia." Mrs. Whitfield glanced at me politely. "How nice. Are you local?" "I'm from Denver," I said. "I'm Amanda's." "Mom, could you watch James for just a second?" Amanda thrust the baby into my arms before I could finish my sentence. "I need to speak with the caterer." And like that, she was gone, leaving me holding my grandson while Mrs. Whitfield made polite conversation about the weather before excusing herself to find more interesting company. I stood there bouncing James gently, watching my daughter work the crowd like a politician. She introduced Rachel to Ethan's parents, laughed at Bradley's father's stories, posed for countless photos with various combinations of guests. None of those photos included me. Beautiful baby. I turned to see an elderly man with kind eyes and a walking cane. "Thank you. He's my grandson. I'm George Morrison, Bradley's great-uncle. You must be very proud." "I am. He's perfect." "Family is everything," George said, studying my face. Though sometimes people forget that until it's too late. There was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. "Are you speaking from experience? 60 years in business teaches you that relationships matter more than reputation. Money comes and goes, but family," he paused. "Well, family should be forever." Amanda reappeared slightly breathless. "Mom, let me take him back. We're about to do family photos." She lifted James from my arms and I waited for her to ask me to join the photo session. She didn't. Instead, I watched from 30 feet away as the photographer arranged multiple groupings. Amanda, Bradley, and James, the new parents with both sets of grandparents, meaning Patricia and William, but not me. Extended family shots with aunts, uncles, cousins, even one with Rachel, Ethan, and his parents, as if she were already part of their family. The photographer never once looked in my direction. When the photos ended, guests began to leave. I approached Amanda one final time. "Sweetheart, this was beautiful. Thank you for including me." "Of course, Mom. I'm so glad you could make it." Her hug felt perfunctory, distracted. "Your hotel has a shuttle to the airport, right? Your flight's pretty early tomorrow." "Early tomorrow. No invitation to dinner. No suggestion to spend more time with my grandson. No acknowledgement that I'd flown halfway across the country for a 30-minute ceremony where I'd been treated like an afterthought. Yes, everything's arranged. Perfect. Travel safe. Okay, I'll call you soon." As I walked back to my waiting Uber, I heard Rachel's laughter carrying across the courtyard. She was still deep in conversation with Ethan, clearly making progress with her romantic agenda. Both my daughters had gotten what they wanted from today. I was the only one who'd been forgotten. But as I settled into the car for the ride back to my hotel, I thought about the envelope sitting in my purse, the one from my brother's attorney that had arrived last Tuesday. Soon, they'd realize exactly what forgetting me would cost them. Back in my hotel room, I kicked off my shoes and pulled the envelope from my purse. The return address read, Whitman and Associates, Estate Attorneys, Denver, Colorado. I'd been so focused on the baptism preparations that I'd barely processed its contents when it arrived. Now sitting alone in a generic hotel room after being treated like a stranger at my own grandson's baptism, every word hit differently. "Dear Mrs. Hamilton, we regret to inform you of the passing of your brother Thomas Hamilton. As per his last will and testament, you have been named the primary beneficiary of his estate. Thomas, my older brother, who'd left Denver 40 years ago to work oil fields in North Dakota, who'd sent Christmas cards but rarely called, who'd lived frugally in a trailer while building what apparently had become an empire." I pulled out the estate summary that had made my hands shake when I first read it. Estate of Thomas Hamilton, oil rights, and mineral leases, $12. $3 million investment portfolio, $4.8 million real estate holdings, $1.20, $2 million cash and savings, $340,000 total estate value, $1,866 million, $18.6 million from my brother, who'd worn the same flannel shirts for 20 years and drove a pickup truck until it literally fell apart. The estate transfer should be complete within 60 days, the attorney had explained when I'd called from Denver in shock. Mr. Hamilton left specific instructions. He wanted you to have security, Mrs. Hamilton. He said, you'd spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Thomas had been right about that. 43 years as a registered nurse, working double shifts to put Amanda and Rachel through college, sacrificing my own comfort so my daughters could have better lives than I'd had. And this was how they thanked me. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Thanks for coming today, Mom. The photos turned out amazing. James looked so precious. Safe travels tomorrow. Amazing photos. The ones I wasn't in. I typed back, beautiful ceremony. Thank you for including me. But I wasn't included, was I? I was tolerated, managed, kept at arm's length like an embarrassing relative who might say the wrong thing in front of the important people. A follow-up text from Rachel appeared. OMG, Mom, I think Ethan really likes me. He asked for my number. This could change everything. This could change everything because landing a millionaire was more important than treating your mother with basic respect. I walked to the hotel room window and looked out at Dallas's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, my daughters were probably celebrating. Amanda because her social climbing had been successful. Rachel because she'd made a connection that could elevate her lifestyle. Neither of them was thinking about the woman who'd raised them alone after their father died, who'd worked nights so they could have dance lessons and summer camps, who'd co-signed their college loans and helped with their first apartment deposits. I picked up my phone and called the number for Whitman and Associates, knowing they'd have emergency contact procedures for estate matters. This is Victoria Hamilton. I'm calling about my brother Thomas's estate. Mrs. Hamilton, I was hoping to hear from you. Did you have questions about the transfer process? Actually, I need to know about changing my own will immediately. There was a pause. Of course, we can certainly help with that. Are you looking to make minor adjustments or more substantial changes? I thought about Amanda's forced smile when she'd seen me at the church, Rachel's complete focus on her romantic prospects. The way both of them had coordinated to minimize my presence at the most important day in my grandson's young life. Substantial changes, I said. I want to remove my daughters from my will entirely. I see. That's certainly your right, Mrs. Hamilton. May I ask about alternate beneficiaries? Children sometimes have children of their own. Yes, my grandson, James. Everything goes to him when he turns 18. And I want to establish a foundation for elderly people who've been abandoned by their families. That's very generous. When would you like to schedule an appointment? As soon as I return to Denver. And I want my daughters notified of the changes officially through legal channels. Absolutely. We'll prepare the documentation immediately. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete control over my own life. My phone rang. Amanda, Mom, I hope you're not upset about the photos. The photographer just had such a specific vision, and we didn't want to interrupt her artistic process. Artistic process. That's what we were calling deliberate exclusion. Now I understand, sweetheart. Great. Oh, and I meant to ask, are you still planning to help with James' college fund? Bradley's parents are setting up this amazing investment account, and we thought you might want to contribute. They thought I might want to contribute after treating me like an unwelcome guest at my own grandson's baptism. Actually, Amanda, I've been thinking about that. I've decided to handle James' education differently. Oh, okay. Well, whatever you think is best. You know, we trust your judgment. They trusted my judgment when it came to money. Just not enough to treat me like family. I'm glad to hear that, I said, because I've made some decisions that I think will be best for everyone. That sounds wonderful, Mom. You're so thoughtful. Thoughtful like it was thoughtful to fly across the country for a baptism only to be seated with strangers and excluded from family photos. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and began researching flights back to Denver. Not the early morning flight Amanda had assumed I'd take, but something later. I had a stop to make first, because before I changed my will, I wanted to make one more attempt to understand exactly who my daughters had become, and I wanted them to understand exactly what their choices would cost them. Tomorrow morning, I would pay them a surprise visit just to see how they treated me when they weren't performing for an audience. The truth about people always comes out when they think no one important is watching. The truth about people always comes out when they think no one important is watching. I arrived at Amanda's house in Highland Park at 10 a.m. having canceled my early flight. The neighborhood was even more intimidating in daylight. Sprawling mansions with manicured lawns, 3-car garages, and the kind of quiet that only money can buy. Amanda's house sat behind an iron gate with an intercom system. I pressed the button and waited. "Hello." Amanda's voice crackled through the speaker, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "Sweetheart, it's Mom. I wanted to say goodbye properly before my flight." A long pause. "Mom, I thought your flight was at 8. I changed it. May I come in?" Another pause, then the buzz of the gate unlocking. Amanda met me at the front door, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair in a messy bun. She looked genuinely surprised and not entirely pleased. "Mom, this is unexpected. I'm actually in the middle of something. I won't stay long. I just realized yesterday that I barely got to spend any real time with James." "Oh, well, he's sleeping right now. Maybe next visit." "Next visit? When would that be? 6 months from now? A year? Could I at least see him?" "I promise I won't wake him." Amanda hesitated, then stepped aside reluctantly. "Okay, but just for a minute. Rachel's here and we're discussing something important." I followed her through a foyer that belonged in a magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, fresh flowers arranged by someone who clearly knew what they were doing. Everything was perfect, sterile, expensive. We passed the living room where I glimpsed Rachel sitting on a white leather sofa, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly. She looked up when she saw me and made a face of pure annoyance. "Mom's here," Amanda announced. Rachel covered her phone. "What?" "Why?" She wanted to see James before her flight. "Her flight was this morning," Rachel hissed. "I changed it," I said calmly. "Don't let me interrupt your call." Rachel waved dismissively and returned to her conversation. "Sorry, Ethan. Family drama." Where were we? "Oh, yes, the yacht club membership." Amanda led me upstairs to the nursery, a room that looked like it had been designed by a professional decorator. Everything was cream and gold with custom furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. James lay sleeping in his crib, tiny fists curled near his cheeks. My heart melted looking at him. "He's beautiful, Amanda. Absolutely perfect." "Thanks." Amanda checked her phone. "Mom, I really do need to get back downstairs. Rachel and I are planning something and we have limited time." "Of course. What are you planning?" "Just logistics for the future." Logistics. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. As we walked back downstairs, I heard Rachel's voice carrying from the living room. "Well, obviously that changes things completely. I mean, if she's going to be difficult about money, we need to plan accordingly." Amanda's face went pale. "Rachel, lower your voice." But Rachel was too absorbed in her conversation to notice. "No, I totally understand why your family would be concerned. A grandmother who doesn't contribute financially is just awkward, especially at family events." I stopped walking. Amanda grabbed my arm, trying to guide me toward the front door. "Mom, let's get you back to your hotel." "The thing is," Rachel continued, "she's always been kind of tight with money. Like, she could help more if she wanted to, but she chooses not to. It's honestly embarrassing. Tight with money. The woman who'd worked double shifts to pay for their educations was tight with money. And now that I'm with Ethan," Rachel went on, "I can't have her showing up looking like, well, you saw her yesterday. His family has standards." "Standards?" I hadn't met the standards of people who hadn't even known my name until yesterday. Amanda was pulling me toward the door now, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Mom, Rachel doesn't mean she means exactly what she's saying," I said quietly. From the living room, Rachel's voice rose with excitement. "Ethan, you're brilliant. If we can just minimize her involvement in future events, phase her out gradually, then by the time we're married, she'll barely be a factor." Phase me out gradually from my own family. Amanda opened the front door. Mom, I think you should go. Yes, I said. I think I should. I walked back to my waiting Uber in a daze. Rachel's words echoed in my mind. A grandmother who doesn't contribute financially is just awkward. They had no idea what I was worth. No idea that I could buy and sell Ethan's family 10 times over. No idea that their dismissive attitudes had just cost them everything. During the ride back to the hotel, I called Whitman and Associates again. Mrs. Hamilton, good to hear from you again so soon. I want to accelerate the will changes and I want to add something. Of course. What would you like to add? I want my daughters to receive formal notification immediately today. I don't want them to find out when I die. I want them to know right now what their choices have cost them. That's unusual, but certainly possible. Any particular reason for the urgency? I thought about Rachel planning to phase me out. Amanda's relief when I'd left the way both of them had calculated my worth and found me lacking. They need to understand that actions have consequences and some decisions can't be undone. Understood. We'll prepare the documentation immediately and arrange for personal service today. Perfect. And make sure they understand that this decision is final. No contests, no negotiations, no second chances. Mrs. Hamilton, are you certain? Sometimes family disputes can be worked out with communication. I've been communicating with my daughters for 34 years. I said yesterday they showed me exactly how much that communication was worth. After I hung up, I changed my flight to that evening. There was no point staying in Dallas another day. I'd learned everything I needed to know about my daughter's priorities. By the time my plane took off, legal documents were being prepared that would deliver the shock of their lives. And for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. The power of being in complete control of my own destiny. My daughters thought they were planning their futures without me. They had no idea how right they were going to be. 3 days later, I sat in my comfortable Denver living room, sipping coffee and watching the morning news when my phone exploded with calls. Amanda first, then Rachel, then Amanda again. I let them all go to voicemail. The doorbell rang at exactly 10:15 a.m. Through my window, I saw a man in a suit holding an official-looking envelope. The process server confirming that my daughters had received their copies of the will changes. I opened the door with a smile. Good morning. All delivered successfully? Yes, ma'am. Both parties received their documentation yesterday evening. Ms. Amanda Hamilton Morrison and Ms. Rachel Hamilton, both in Dallas, Texas. Perfect. Thank you. After he left, I finally listened to my voicemails. Amanda's voice was shaky. Mom, we got some papers. Legal papers. There must be some mistake. Can you call me back, please? Rachel's message was more direct. What the hell, Mom? We need to talk now. Then Amanda again, crying. Mom, please. I don't understand what's happening. The lawyer says you're removing us from your will. That can't be right. We're your daughters. Yes, you're my daughters, and I raised you better than this. My phone rang again. Amanda calling for the 6th time. This time I answered, hello, sweetheart. Mom. Amanda's relief was palpable. Thank God. There's been some horrible mistake. We got these papers saying you're changing your will, taking us out completely. That's not true, right? Someone's trying to scam us or something. It's not a mistake, Amanda. Silence. Then what do you mean? I mean, I've removed both you and Rachel from my will. Everything will go to James when he turns 18 and to charity organizations that help elderly people abandoned by their families. You what? Mom, why would you do that? I walked to my back deck looking out at the Colorado mountains that had been my view for 30 years. Because I heard you and Rachel planning to phase me out of the family. Phase you out? What are you talking about? Monday morning at your house, Rachel was on the phone with Ethan, discussing how embarrassing I am, how I don't contribute financially, how his family has standards that I don't meet. Amanda's voice became small. You heard that? Every word, including the part where she called me awkward, and you both agreed I should be minimized at future family events. Mom, that's not Rachel was just nervous about making a good impression. She didn't mean she meant exactly what she said. Amanda, you both did. But you can't just this is crazy. We're family. Family. I let the word hang in the air. Is that what you call putting me in the back row at my grandson's baptism? Excluding me from every photo, making me feel like an unwelcome stranger at the most important day of his young life. The photos were just logistics, space constraints. Don't lie to me, Amanda. You had plenty of space for Rachel's new boyfriend and his parents. People who met my grandson for the first time that day, but no space for his grandmother. I heard crying on the other end of the line. Mom, please, we can fix this. We can do better. You had 34 years to do better, sweetheart. This isn't a sudden decision. This is the result of watching both my daughters become people I don't recognize. What do you mean you don't recognize us? I sat down in my favorite chair, the one Robert and I had picked out together 20 years ago. I raised you to value family, respect, kindness. Instead, you've become people who calculate the social value of your own mother and find her lacking. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me, Amanda, when's the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed something, not because you felt obligated, but because you actually wanted to hear my voice. Silence. When's the last time you visited Denver? When's the last time you asked about my life, my friends, my health, my happiness? More silence. You want to know what's not fair? I continued. What's not fair is working double shifts for 20 years to pay for your education, then being treated like an embarrassment because I don't fit your new social circle. Mom, we never said you were an embarrassment. Rachel did on Monday to her millionaire boyfriend. She said I was embarrassing and that I needed to be phased out gradually so I wouldn't be a factor by the time they're married. Amanda was crying harder now. She was just scared. Mom, Ethan's family is really intimidating and she wants them to like her. So, she decided to sacrifice me to make herself look better. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. And you supported her. You both calculated that I was less valuable than the impression you wanted to make on rich strangers. My phone beeped with an incoming call. Rachel, your sister's calling. I told Amanda, don't hang up, Mom. Please, we need to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, sweetheart. I've made my decision. But the money, we thought we were counting on there it was. The real concern wasn't losing me. It was losing my money. You were counting on an inheritance from the woman you planned to phase out of your lives. No, that's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant, and it's exactly why my decision is the right one. I heard shouting in the background, Rachel's voice getting closer to the phone. Mom. Rachel had grabbed the phone from Amanda. What the hell are you doing? You can't just cut us out of your will because your feelings got hurt. My feelings got hurt? I almost laughed. Rachel, you called me financially worthless and socially embarrassing to a man you've known for 3 days. I was just trying to manage expectations. Ethan's family is used to a certain level of sophistication, and I don't meet that level. I didn't say that. You said I was awkward, that I didn't contribute enough financially, that I needed to be phased out so I wouldn't be a factor in your future. You took that out of context. What context makes that acceptable, Rachel? She was quiet for a moment. Then, look, maybe I said some things I shouldn't have, but you're being completely unreasonable. We're your daughters. We deserve our inheritance. Deserve as if inheritance was a right rather than a gift. Tell me, Rachel, what have you done to deserve it? We're your children. We don't have to do anything. Actually, I said calmly, you do. You have to be the kind of people I'm proud to call my daughters. And right now, you're not. This is insane. You're punishing us for one conversation. I'm responding to 34 years of watching you both become people who value money and status more than family and character. The line went quiet except for crying. Both Amanda and Rachel now. Mom. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. What do we have to do? How do we fix this? I looked at a framed photo on my side table. Both girls as children hugging me after a school play. They'd been such sweet kids, full of love and gratitude and joy. I don't know if you can fix this, sweetheart, but if you want to try, you'll have to prove that you've remembered who I raised you to be. How? That's something you'll have to figure out yourselves. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside my window, Denver looked beautiful in the morning light. For the first time in years, I felt truly peaceful. My daughters thought they had been planning their futures. They had no idea their real education was just beginning. For 2 weeks, I enjoyed the most peaceful silence I'd experienced in years. No guilt-inducing phone calls about money. No last-minute requests for babysitting that never materialized. No performative conversations where my daughters pretended to care about my life. I used the time to research charities, plan my estate distribution, and for the first time since Robert died, think about what I actually wanted from my remaining years. Then the campaign began. It started with flowers, enormous, expensive arrangements delivered daily to my door. Roses, lilies, orchids, the kind of bouquets that cost more than most people's grocery bills. Each came with a card. Thinking of you, Mom. Love, Amanda, or missing you so much. Zoxo, Rachel. After a week of flowers, the gifts escalated. A cashmere throw from Neiman Marcus, a spa gift certificate for $500, a beautiful necklace that came with an appraisal certificate showing its $1,200 value. All purchased with money they hoped to inherit from me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then came the visits. Amanda arrived first on a Tuesday afternoon looking haggard and desperate. She'd flown from Dallas with baby James, which immediately told me how serious she considered the situation. Mom, please. We need to talk. I let her in, not because I was ready to forgive, but because I wanted to see my grandson. James had grown in just 2 weeks, more alert, more responsive. As I held him, Amanda sat on my couch and cried. I can't sleep, she said. I keep thinking about all the ways I failed you. Bradley says I'm obsessing, but I can't stop. What does Bradley think about all this? Amanda's face crumpled. He says you're being manipulative. He thinks you're just trying to control us with money. And what do you think? I think she paused, struggling. I think I forgot how to be your daughter somewhere along the way. It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. When did that happen, do you think? I don't know. Maybe when I met Bradley. His family is so polished. They never raise their voices, never show emotion, never acknowledge anything messy or difficult. I guess I thought that's what sophistication looked like. And I was too messy. She nodded, tears streaming. You reminded me of where I came from. Working-ass Denver, a single mom doing her best. When I was around Bradley's family, I wanted to forget all that. You wanted to forget me. Not forget you. Just not have to explain you. The honesty was brutal but necessary. Amanda, do you remember what I taught you about shame? She wiped her eyes. That it's just fear wearing a fancy dress. And what were you afraid of? That they'd think I wasn't good enough? That they'd see through the act and realize I didn't belong in their world? So, you decided I didn't belong either. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I looked down at James, who was gripping my finger with surprising strength. What do you want from me, Amanda? I want another chance. I want to remember how to be the person you raised. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to figure it out. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Rachel climbing out of an Uber, dragging a suitcase behind her. Did you know she was coming? I asked Amanda. She texted that she was flying in. I didn't know she'd come straight here. Rachel burst through the door without waiting for an invitation. Her usual confidence replaced by frantic energy. Mom, this is insane. You can't just cut us off because we made some mistakes. Hello to you too, Rachel. Don't be sarcastic. This is serious. Do you have any idea what you're doing to our lives? I'm giving you both exactly what you wanted. A future without me in it. That's not what we wanted, isn't it? You were literally planning to phase me out of family events. Rachel threw herself into my armchair. I was nervous. Ethan's family is incredibly wealthy, and I was scared they'd judge me based on she trailed off. Based on what, Rachel? Based on our background, based on the fact that we're not like them. You mean based on me? No. Well, maybe partly, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I sat down across from her, still holding James. Rachel, do you remember the summer you were 15 and wanted to go to that expensive music camp? Of course. What did I do? Her voice became small. You worked extra shifts for 3 months to pay for it. And do you remember what you said when you got home? That it was the best summer of my life and that I'd never forget what you sacrificed for me. Have you forgotten? She was crying now. I didn't forget. I got confused about what mattered. What confused you? Money, status, the way people treat you when they think you're important. She looked at Amanda. We both got confused. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I'd lived for 3 decades. The same street where I'd taught both girls to ride bikes, where we'd waited for school buses, where we'd had countless conversations about life and values and what really mattered. Girls, I need you to understand something. This isn't about punishment. This is about consequences. What's the difference? Amanda asked. Punishment is about making you suffer. Consequences are about teaching you the real cost of your choices. But we understand now, Rachel said desperately. We know we messed up. Do you? Because 3 weeks ago you were planning my gradual elimination from the family. Now you're here because you found out it'll cost you money. How do I know which response is real? They looked at each other, then back at me. How do we prove it? Amanda asked quietly. I thought about that for a long moment, watching James sleep peacefully in my arms. I don't know if you can, I said finally. But if you want to try, you'll have to start by figuring out who you actually are when no one's watching. When there's no money involved, no social pressure, no audience to impress. We can do that, Rachel said quickly. Can you? Because right now, you're both here because I have money you want. How is that different from the people you've been trying to impress? The question hung in the air like a challenge. But what happened next would test whether my daughters could truly change or if they were just better at pretending. The test came sooner than I expected. 3 days after Rachel arrived in Denver, my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, knocked on my door. She was 86, lived alone, and had become increasingly frail over the past year. Victoria, dear, she said, wringing her hands. I hate to bother you, but I'm in a terrible situation. What's wrong, Helen? My grandson promised to take me to my doctor's appointment today, but he just called and canceled. Something about work. The appointment is in an hour, and if I miss it, they'll make me wait another month. I looked back at my living room where Amanda was feeding James and Rachel was scrolling through her phone. Both of them clearly trying to be on their best behavior. Of course, I'll take you, I said. Let me get my keys. As I turned to gather my things, I heard Amanda say, Mom, where are you going? Mrs. Patterson needs a ride to the doctor. Rachel looked up from her phone. Now we're in the middle of working things out. Mrs. Patterson is 86 and has no other way to get there. Can't she call an Uber? Rachel asked. The question hung in the air like a revelation. She could, I said slowly. Just like I could have called an Uber to your son's baptism instead of flying across the country. Amanda's face flushed. That's different, is it? How? She's not family. Neither am I, apparently. At least not family worth including in photos or treating with respect. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. I'll be back in 2 hours. You can stay or go, but this is who I am. This is what I do. I help people who need help, whether it's convenient or not. As I walked toward Mrs. Patterson's house, I heard Amanda call after me. Mom, wait. I turned around. Both my daughters were hurrying to catch up. We're coming with you, Amanda said. Why? Rachel shifted uncomfortably. Because you're right. If we want to prove we've changed, we need to show you, not just tell you. The drive to the doctor's office was revealing. Mrs. Patterson, delighted to have company, chatted about her late husband, her garden, her worries about her grandson, who was too busy with his important job to spend time with her. It's so lonely sometimes, she admitted. I go days without talking to anyone except the grocery store clerk. In the rearview mirror, I watched Amanda and Rachel exchange glances. They were beginning to understand what isolation felt like. At the medical office, Mrs. Patterson's appointment ran long. We sat in the waiting room for over an hour. This is taking forever, Rachel muttered, checking her phone. Do you have somewhere more important to be? I asked. No, but she stopped herself, recognizing the trap in her own words. Amanda was quieter, watching elderly patients shuffle in and out, many of them alone. Mom, do you do this a lot? Help neighbors like this? Every week, sometimes more. Why? Because when you get old, people start treating you like you're invisible, like your time doesn't matter, your needs aren't important, your feelings don't count. Rachel looked up from her phone. Is that how we made you feel at the baptism? Yes. I didn't realize that's the problem, Rachel. You didn't think about how I felt at all. When Mrs. Patterson finally emerged from her appointment, she was beaming. The doctor says I'm doing wonderfully. My blood pressure is down and my heart sounds strong. That's wonderful news, Amanda said, and I could tell she genuinely meant it. On the drive home, Mrs. Patterson invited us all in for tea. It's been so long since I've had proper company. Her house was immaculate, but clearly lonely, one place setting at the kitchen table, a single TV dinner in the freezer, photographs of family members who never visited. As Mrs. Patterson bustled around making tea, Rachel whispered to me, "This is heartbreaking. She's all alone." Yes, she is. But where's her family? Her grandson visits twice a year. Her daughter lives in California and calls once a month. They're all too busy with their important lives. Amanda was studying the photographs on Mrs. Patterson's mantel. She looked so happy in these pictures with her husband, her children when they were young. She was happy then before everyone decided she wasn't important anymore. Mrs. Patterson served us tea and china cups that clearly hadn't been used in months. She was so grateful for the company that she kept thanking us for brightening her day. When we finally left, Rachel was unusually quiet. "Mom," she said as we walked back to my house, "is that going to be us when we're old? I mean, alone and forgotten." "I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on how you treat the people who love you. But we could end up like Mrs. Patterson, waiting for phone calls that don't come, hoping someone remembers we exist." "Yes, you could." Amanda was carrying James, who had slept through the entire afternoon. I never thought about it that way, about what it feels like to be discarded. Most people don't until it happens to them. That evening, my daughters insisted on cooking dinner, not ordering takeout, not suggesting a restaurant, but actually cooking. They found ingredients in my pantry and worked together in my kitchen, arguing good-naturedly about seasoning and timing like they had as teenagers. During dinner, Rachel said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you change your will. When you decided we weren't worthy of inheriting from you. How did that feel?" I considered the question carefully. Powerful and incredibly sad. Sad because it meant accepting that I'd failed as a mother. "You didn't fail," Amanda protested. "We failed you." "Did I? Because if I'd raised you right, you never would have treated me the way you did." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Or maybe we just forgot our lessons and need to remember them." "Maybe. What would it take?" Amanda asked. "For you to believe we've remembered." I looked at both my daughters. Really looked at them. Amanda holding her son with gentle confidence. Rachel thoughtfully cleaning up dinner dishes without being asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But today was a start. Because we helped Mrs. Patterson. Because you saw her. You recognized her loneliness and understood that it mattered." Rachel nodded slowly. "And we saw ourselves what we could become if we keep making the wrong choices." "What we almost made you become," Amanda added quietly. That night, after they'd both gone to their hotel, they'd insisted on staying nearby, but not imposing on my space. I sat on my back deck and thought about forgiveness. It wasn't a switch I could flip. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something I'd almost given up on. Hope. Maybe my daughters could learn who they used to be. Maybe they could remember what I'd tried to teach them about kindness, respect, and the importance of treating people like they matter. Or maybe they were just performing again, putting on a show to get their inheritance back. Time would tell which version was real. The answer came 3 weeks later in a way I never expected. My daughters had returned to Dallas, but something had shifted. Our phone calls were different, longer, more genuine, focused on my life instead of their needs. Amanda sent photos of James daily, not because she wanted something, but because she wanted to share her joy with me. Rachel had ended things with Ethan after realizing their relationship was built on mutual social climbing rather than genuine connection. I was beginning to hope that maybe, just maybe, they were truly changing. Then the crisis hit. It started with a phone call at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Rachel sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Mom, something terrible happened. Amanda's in the hospital." My blood went cold. "What? What happened?" "Car accident. She was driving to work and someone ran a red light. She's in surgery right now." "Is she?" We don't know yet. It's bad, Mom. Really bad. I was booking a flight before she finished explaining the details. Where's James with me? But Mom, there's something else. Something about insurance. My stomach dropped. What about insurance? Bradley's company had some kind of billing error. Their health insurance lapsed last month and they didn't know. The hospital is demanding payment up front for Amanda's surgery. How much? $200,000 minimum, and that's just for the surgery. If she needs extended care, I closed my eyes. $200,000 was nothing compared to my inheritance. But my daughters didn't know that. As far as they knew, I was a retired nurse living on Social Security and a modest pension. Mom, I know things have been complicated between us, and I know you changed your will, but Amanda could die. The doctors won't do the surgery without payment, and we don't have that kind of money. This was it, the moment that would reveal everything. I'm flying out immediately, I said. What about the money? We'll figure it out. For hours later, I was on a plane to Dallas, my mind racing. This was the test I'd never planned, but it would show me definitively who my daughters really were. Were they the young women who'd excluded me from family photos and planned to phase me out, or were they the caring daughters I'd glimpsed over the past few weeks? I arrived at Dallas Presbyterian Hospital to find Rachel in the waiting room, holding James and looking devastated. She jumped up when she saw me. Mom, thank God you're here. I hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling her body shake with exhaustion and fear. How is she still in surgery? It's been 6 hours. The doctors said it could take 12 more. I sat down beside her and James immediately reached for me. As I held my grandson, Rachel broke down completely. Mom, I'm so scared. What if she doesn't make it? What if the last conversation I had with her was about money and inheritance and stupid social status? What was your last conversation about? She called me yesterday to tell me she'd been thinking about Mrs. Patterson, about how he treated you. She said she wanted to visit Denver more often, spend real time with you, not just obligation visits. My heart squeezed. She said she'd been a terrible daughter, and she wanted James to grow up knowing his grandmother properly. Not the version of you we tried to hide, but the real you. The woman who works double shifts to help her kids. Who drops everything to help elderly neighbors, who sacrifices everything for family. I was crying now too. And now she might die thinking you hate us. Rachel continued, thinking we're not worth loving anymore. Rachel, I could never hate you, either of you. But your will, my will was about teaching you consequences, not about stopping love. A doctor in scrubs approached us. Are you Amanda Hamilton Morrison's family? We both stood. Yes, I said. I'm her mother. The surgery went well. She's stable, but she'll need extensive rehabilitation, several months of physical therapy, possible additional surgeries. The good news is that she's going to recover fully. Relief flooded through me so powerfully that my knees almost gave out. However, the doctor continued, there is the matter of payment. The business office needs to discuss financial arrangements. Rachel and I looked at each other. This was the moment. Doctor, I said, please have them prepare the total bill. I'll handle all expenses. Mom, Rachel whispered. You don't have that kind of money. I looked at my younger daughter, this woman who'd spent weeks learning to see me as a person rather than an obstacle. Actually, sweetheart, I do. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean, your Uncle Thomas left me $18.60, $6 million when he died last month. Rachel's mouth fell open. $18? What? Million? I'm not the poor old woman you thought I was. But why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to see who you really were when you thought I had nothing to offer except love. Rachel sat down heavily processing this information. So, when we were talking about phasing you out, when we called you financially worthless, I was worth more than Ethan's entire family. Oh my God. She put her head in her hands. We are the worst people in the world. No, you're not. You're just people who lost their way and had to find it again. But you could have told us. You could have made Amanda's medical bills disappear with a phone call. Yes, I could have. But then I never would have known if your concern for your sister was real or just another performance. Rachel looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. It's real, Mom. Everything I've felt these past few weeks is real. The guilt, the shame, the desperate need to be your daughter again. None of that was about money. I know, sweetheart. How do you know? Because you've been here for 8 hours, terrified you might lose your sister. And you never once asked me for money until the doctor said it was necessary for her life. Rachel started crying harder. I don't care about the inheritance anymore. I just want my sister to be okay, and I want to be the person you raised me to be. I pulled her into my arms, holding both her and James. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. When Amanda woke up 12 hours later, the first thing she saw was Rachel and me sitting beside her bed. James sleeping peacefully in my arms. Mom, she whispered. You came? Of course I came. I'm your mother. I'm so sorry for everything. For the baptism, for the photos, for forgetting who you are and who you taught me to be. I know, sweetheart, and I forgive you. But we'll talk about that when you're stronger. Amanda tried to sit up, wincing. Mom, the medical bills. I know they're enormous, and I know you don't have. Actually, Rachel interrupted. It turns out Mom is rich. Like really rich. Amanda looked confused. What? Uncle Thomas left her $18 million. Amanda's eyes widened, then filled with tears. So you could have helped us all along. Yes, but you wanted to see if we'd learned our lesson. I wanted to see if you remembered how to love without expecting something in return. Amanda nodded slowly. And did we pass? I looked at my daughters, Rachel, exhausted from a night of genuine fear for her sister. Amanda more concerned about my forgiveness than my money. With flying colors, that evening I called my attorney from Amanda's hospital room. Mrs. Hamilton, how can I help you? I need to make another change to my will. Both my daughters looked at me with anxiety. I want to restore my daughters as beneficiaries. Equal shares with James receiving his portion at 25 instead of 18. Are you certain about this change? I looked at Amanda and Rachel, both crying with relief and gratitude. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, but there was one more surprise I had in store for them. 2 months later, Amanda was walking again with the help of a cane, and we were all gathered in my Denver living room for James's first Christmas. The tree sparkled in the corner. Presents were wrapped in waiting, and for the first time in years, my house felt like a real home again. Mom, Amanda said, settling carefully into Robert's old armchair. Can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. When you changed your will back, when you restored us as beneficiaries, you said there was something else you wanted to discuss. Rachel looked up from where she was playing with James on the floor. I've been wondering about that, too. I smiled, reaching for the folder I'd kept on my coffee table for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Actually, there is something I've been working on since I inherited Uncle Thomas's money. I handed them each a thick packet of documents. What is this? Rachel asked, flipping through pages of legal text. It's the founding documents for the Victoria Hamilton Foundation for Family Reconnection. Both my daughters looked confused. I don't understand, Amanda said. Remember Mrs. Patterson? Remember how lonely she was? How forgotten she felt? They nodded. There are thousands of elderly people in this country who are experiencing exactly what I experienced at James's baptism. Their children are embarrassed by them. Exclude them from family events, treat them like burdens instead of blessings. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered street where I'd raised my girls. But there are also thousands of adult children who want to reconnect with their parents and don't know how. People who've made mistakes, said hurtful things, let pride and misunderstandings tear their families apart, like us, Rachel said quietly. Like you. And like hundreds of other families who need help finding their way back to each other. Amanda was reading through the documents. Mom, this says you're donating $12 million to start this foundation. That's right. $12 million. But that's more than half of Uncle Thomas's inheritance. Yes, it is. Rachel sat up straighter. So our inheritance. Your inheritance will be smaller. Yes. About $2 million each instead of $6 million. I watched their faces carefully, looking for any sign of the old greed, the old entitlement. Instead, Amanda started crying. Mom, that's incredible. Do you know how many families you could help with $12 million? We estimate about 10,000 families over the next decade, I said. family counseling, mediation services, financial assistance for visits and reunification, support groups for both elderly parents and estranged adult children. Rachel was reading her packet now, her eyes growing wider with each page. You're creating support groups for people like us, people who've been terrible to their parents, people who've lost their way and want to find it again. Yes. And counseling for people like Mrs. Patterson. People who feel abandoned and invisible. Absolutely. Amanda struggled to stand up, using her cane for support. She walked over to me and pulled me into a fierce hug. Mom, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You're taking the worst experience of your life and using it to help other people. We're taking our worst experience and using it to help other people.